competition in Poland. Also, at that time, Poland was not in the Eurozone, also there was not the euro in that area. Architecture in Poland was a profession quite not so communicated in the media. So the municipality proposed to do this competition. The competition received a lot of interest in Poland, but also around Europe. There was a lot of participants in that competition. After that, after winning the competition, the process in order to achieve the financing for the project has been quite complex. In fact, the financing was recounting from the city hall, but the region also, and from European funds. And also for the administration was not so easy to promote the project and continues to create this kind of building. You have to have in mind that this has been the first important cultural building that has been built in Szczecin after the Second World. So the attention of the media around the project was quite important, not only for the architecture, but also because has been really an history that presents some important changement inside of the city and also inside of the country. So, and after that, I think after we work in this project during more or less 9 years, after that, when we finally finishing the project, this has been quite a lot of interest because of the media, because of the architecture, and so on. But the most important thing, I think, has been that the city, in a way, receive a present, and now the building is something really important inside of the city. It's a part of the social life of the city, and I think also the citizen has learned how to use the building. In fact, for example, the activity inside the building, fortunately, is quite intense, not only for the Philharmonic in itself, but also to hosting event and other parts. So, has been, I think, in general, for that moment in 2007 and for the process, the project received quite, I know, the relationship with the media has been quite relevant, but because of this extraordinary history in a way, apart for sure also because of the debate that generates in architecture, but also because how it has been built, no? During these 9 years. And I think the most important thing after we finish in the building is that now it's a really important present in the city. And this present has been completed also with another museum that has been built in front of the building. There is a general process in order to reorganize the neighborhood around. So I think that this relationship with the administration, with the city, the process, the history, has been what has made, in a way, relevant the project for the media. And just to finish this very small presentation, also for us has been an important project in our career. After the prize, the project received a lot of attention, and then after sure, I think is for Xander is the same. The project permit us to have more, I don't know, in a way, some kind of more visibility, some possibility also to present our work abroad and work in different typology of project and in different country. I think that is fine. Thank you.
Thank you, Alberto and Fabrizio. When we told the EU Mies Award is supported by the European Union through the Creative Europe program, and that's very important for us to continue developing it. But when we told them that the winner of the 2017 edition of the prize was Kleiburg, and we showed them a photo, it took them a while to give an answer. And in fact, Mr. Michel Magnier, when he came here for the presentation, he also said at the very beginning he understood nothing about why that a building could be or should be the winner of the 2017 EU Mies Award. And when the press started asking us for some images of the project, they continued asking for another one, and we weren't sure what they were asking us for because it was not a project that could be kind of summarized with a photo, let's say. Xander, let's hear you, your story.
Well, thank you very much for the invitation to give a brief presentation here. I've just called it Kleiburg, the headlines, because it's going to be really short, pointing out some issues, and especially, of course, in relationship to the media. But it's also, I've tried to make this presentation using the newspaper headlines and articles that have been published during the project. And can I skip it myself or no? Okay, great. For you not familiar with the project, this is one of the nicest pictures of the project, I think. It's a big slab building, 400 meters long, concrete, social housing from the 70s, reused as a do-it-yourself apartment building. You don't see it, but everything in this photograph has been touched by our work, but it's done very, very kind of surgically and precise. Connected to a much wider project that made it actually also very interesting for the media. Actually, this project started from a media campaign, really, and one newspaper article specifically that jump-started the project. Because Kleiburg was set to be nominated to be demolished. It was the last remaining original flat of the Bijlmermeer, and the 70s development of 40,000 units, based on the ideas of the Congres International de Architectuur Moderne. It was the kind of most extreme Dutch version of this. It was set to be redeveloped through a plan of Glenn Murcutt, which would cost 70 million euros in the crisis. Was absolutely impossible to do it, so it would be demolished. And this is the moment when a couple of local inhabitants of the Bijlmermeer started to protest this demolition. For them, Kleiburg was a key part of the last remaining part of the original Bijlmermeer. 75% of these 40,000 units had been demolished to fix the social and economic problems in the area. So this kind of protest against this demolition led to this newspaper article, Bijlmer flat for sale for €1. The representative of Rochdale, the council that owns Kleiburg, kind of jokingly said, if there's somebody with a good idea, he can buy the building for €1, which would be a really good deal for them because demolishing it would cost 7 million euros. That was in January 2011, and this newspaper article was the kind of a jumpstart of the project because there was no formal tender, there was nothing really, there was just something he said without kind of realizing the consequences. The client of one of the guys I was sharing an office with, he called another project developer and said, if you both pitch in 50 cents, then we buy this building and have a good idea. 2 people became 4 people, 50 cents became 25 cents, so the risk dropped. And they went to Rochdale, to this council, and said, hey, you proposed this idea, we want to pay this €1, let's do this. So everybody was in a panic. After this, there was an entire long process. There was the necessity to organize a formal tender. I helped them with organizing the tender and kind of laying out the key issues of the project. Leading up to, in 2012, almost a year later, that Kleiburg will become a do-it-yourself apartment building, klusflat in Dutch. This is Martijn Blom. This was the guy I was sharing an office with, one of the 4 initiators. And you see how the building was there. It was all boarded up. It was very ugly. It had been emptied prior, ready for demolition. But this was an ongoing process in the media. It had nothing to do with architecture yet. There was a concept, there was an idea. Next. And this was the idea. We would do everything between the front door and the city. We would do that from as a collective act. But behind the front door, we would leave it to the new owners of the building. which made it a simple business case. We could make it as affordable as social housing, which was the main ambition for the project. And we could offer people with not a lot of money the possibility to do anything they wanted within the shell of the building, which is very unusual. It's very much possible for people with a lot of money to build your own dream, but with people with little money, this is not possible. And it's all in a context, in a part of the city that everybody kind of held as the kind of worst image of the city, the modernist city that people could imagine. It was the kind of the banlieues of Amsterdam. And the start of the development was on the national news. This is a clip from the journal, in which they kind of proclaimed the amazing fact that this very ugly building in this really bad neighborhood, in the minds of most people, which actually would be given a second life in the middle of the economic crisis. It was this kind of mix of totally unbelievable facts. This is a tourist guide of the Bijlmermeer who kind of, for him it's totally evident that it will be a fantastic project, but for everybody else it was this kind of amazing idea of what's going to happen here in the Bijlmermeer. This is a newspaper of the original Bijlmermeer. You see the vast scale of it. This is how it was. This was kind of the general image of that people had of the neighborhood. There was this disaster in the Bijlmermeer, which a plane crashed into the building. All these things were kind of in the ideas of people of what the Bijlmermeer was, and our project started to. A lot of buildings were replaced with these residential buildings. So this story, this narrative of this neighborhood, of the people living there, and now that this building would be given a second life was kind of an amazing idea. This was the representative of the project developer. And you see the kind of the flags. There was the very small first initial steps to kind of appropriate the building again. Maybe we can stop the clip for now. And it turned out that this project was viable. So a couple of years later, the Minister of Housing, this guy, Stef Blok, he opened the construction phase of the first phase of the project, with already the new owners showing their ideas for the project. Again, this is barely about architecture. This is about offering people an ability, the opportunity to do something in this building, which was never possible. Next. When the first two phases were finished, you see the first phase and then the start of the second phase. There was this kind of proof that the project actually worked. There was this first interest for the project from an architectural point of view. Kirsten Hannema of the Volkskrant wrote in 2015 about the kind of interventions we did, how we translated this kind of concept of do-it-yourself apartment building to an architectural concept, to an architectural strategy. But this was already, 4 years into the project. And after there was national interest, national newspaper. After we won the Mies van der Rohe award in May, and later on that year the Dutch Design Awards. Also international platforms like the Zine picked up on the project, using these images, which we feel are kind of nice. But it's there was an interesting problem that. On the one hand, we have this kind of the revamp of this 70s block, this kind of brutalist aesthetic, which has a kind of a new aesthetic, becomes a bit en vogue at the moment. Is related to kind of a reappraisal of the buildings of this age. This kind of the general aspect of this project are stepping on the foreground, but these individual stories of the inhabitants finding a new life in this neighborhood with all its historic problems, this kind of went a bit to the background. So there were the kind of two narratives in this project. Initially, it was the narrative of the people finding a new place, an affordable way to live, and now the kind of narrative in the international attention switched to the attitude and our attitude in dealing with this heritage from the 60s and 70s. So this is the time when we started to talk about our interventions in the building, why we did them. But these were all related to the total story of giving people the opportunity to make their own things in the project. And of course, we communicated through these images. You can just flip through them. This one, because this kind of showed the original ambitions of the Siam plan with this park-like landscape with the leisure facilities in it, and this building standing there as a backdrop to it. We showed this earlier on. This was a photo after the first phase had been completed, so the kind of the first result of the strategies became visible. But these images about the people actually hacking their way through the building and forging their own dream palace in this building were shown much less, although there are the other 50% of the project. And images like this, which are, from an architectural point of view, not very interesting, but they show a very proud guy who has made his own apartment within the project, who has been able to do something which was not available in Amsterdam and is still not available in Amsterdam. This combination of this superstructure and this really individual personal story, that's what makes this project so interesting for me at least. And these personal stories are part of a television series which has been aired on national television in the last month of 3 episodes. It's a series of portraits of people living in a couple of neighborhoods in Holland. And Kleiburg has also been part of...
Yeah, well, to continue, what we would like to ask is Rafael Gómez Moriana, Llàtzer Moix, Anatxu Zabalbeascoa, and Eva Porębska, of course. If you can now come, we will put a mic on you. Aquí, no? Okay, over there, yeah. So that we can now continue a little bit this discussion. We invited these 4 people now to speak about these projects because they are connected to different media in their own countries, and they wrote about these 2 projects. And so we wanted to see, well, what they did and also their impression on how these 2 projects were disseminated and were kind of published in different media.
Maybe while they put the microphone, I can read you a bit about them. Llàtzer Moix, journalist since 1975. He was for 20 years responsible for the cultural section of La Vanguardia in Barcelona, where he now works as deputy director, editorialist, columnist, and architecture critic. Among his books are La ciudad de los arquitectos, on the urban transformation of Barcelona before 1992, Architektura milagrosa, about iconic architecture in Spain, y Queríamos un Calatrava,